Hello everyone, and thank you for coming back to my channel. I want to give a special thanks to all of you who have subscribed. I truly appreciate your support. Those who are watching and like the content, please hit like and subscribe. I will be putting out more content in the near future. I also like to thank my mother who flew in from out of town to help me make this video for you. She actually attended a school in Miami to learn the skills of fine sugar arts. Today I will be making for you a sugar flour fondant cake. It can be used for a wedding, a birthday cake, or any special occasion. This cake is 100% edible except for the stems that hold the roses. Those will be made out of paper lollipops. All of the products that I used to create this cake can be purchased at your local Walmart, Hobby Lobby, or grocery store. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us begin. Using the white fondant, we start by making the rosebud. There is no need to add coloring because this will be completely covered by petals. The larger your rosebud is, the larger your rose will turn out. Take a small amount of fondant and with your hand shape the fondant into an oval shape. My rosebuds are about a 1¼ inch high and about 1 inch wide. So once you create your oval shape rosebud, like I'm doing here, you take your lollipop stick, you put it in water, and you insert it inside and push it all the way up without the lollipop stick sticking out of the fondant. And you press it down to make sure that it is making contact with the fondant. Once you are done, insert it into the styrofoam block and you allow it to dry for a minimum of 4 to 6 hours. The more you allow it to dry, the easier it will be for you to handle. I would recommend that you make extra rosebuds in case one of your roses breaks and you have to make a new one. Okay, once we are satisfied with the amount of rosebuds that we created, we are moving on to coloring the fondant. This is the fondant that will be used to create the petals who make up the full-blown rose. I chose to go with a dark burgundy, orange, yellow, and peach roses, but it's up to you what color you like to create. The possibilities are endless, but the results will always turn out beautiful. Your guests will be blown away by how realistic and stunning these roses will look, and they really are super easy to put together. As always, all of the products and the colors and everything that I have used to make this cake for you will be listed in the description. The last piece of fondant that I'm coloring here is going to be used to create the leaves for the roses. We will be using the Wilton cutout set for our petals as well as the leaves, and the Wilton I taught myself to decorate cakes with fondant set. Also, we will be using cornstarch. This will be used to dust the fondant to avoid it from sticking. Take out your green, pink, and orange cutter, and you are going to slowly and gently open them up until they form an oval shape cutter. So you're going to take the orange cutter and you are going to cut out 2 petals. These 2 petals will be used to make a single rosebud. Okay, you're going to place them on your pink pad and you're going to Stretch them out. If they are sticking to the pad, just dust them off with some of the cornstarch, as I'm doing here. And you're going to flatten them, and you are going to ruffle and pleat the borders of the petal. The thinner the petal, the more realistic the rose will be. However, the thinner the petal, the more delicate, therefore causing it to break much easier when it's time for you to place the rose on the cake. So be careful and make extra in case one does break. You're going to take your brush, dip it in some water, and brush a little bit of water on the bud, as I'm doing here. And you're going to take the second petal and you're going to overlap the first petal. Make sure that the entire fondant bud is covered. Okay, that completes your first rose bud. Alright, now we are going to be moving on to our second rose bud. This one will be turned into an actual full-blown rose. As previously done, you are going to cut out 2 petals with your orange cutter, and you're going to pleat them and stretch them, and you are going to water the rose bud, and you're going to overlap your petals, and you're going to put that aside. Now we're going to take the green fondant and we're going to create the foliage to complete the first rose bud. You're going to cut out 4 using your purple cutter. Place them on the pink pad and pleat them a little bit, and you're going to water the rosebud, and you're going to place all 4 of them, and this will finalize your rosebud. Okay, now we'll be continuing working on the full-blown rose. And you're going to take your pink cutter and you are going to cut out 3 petals. Ruffle and pleat the borders of each petal as I'm doing here. Take your brush and lightly wet the bottom of the bud. Take your petal and place the center of the petal where the 2 previously placed petals meet. Open the rose petals, mimicking a natural blossom pattern. We're moving on to the next phase. You are going to cut out 4 petals using the orange cutter. And again, the same thing, you're going to stretch them out, you're going to pleat the ends. Once again, take your brush and lightly wet the bottom of the bud. Take one of the petals and place the center of that petal right where the 2 previously placed petals fall together, as I'm doing here. Take your next petal and put it over the previously placed one. Continue to turn your bud carefully. Take your next petal and put it under, as I'm doing here, and you're going to press lightly. Continue turning. Take your last petal and you are going to place it under. Press down lightly and once again open up the petals to mimic a natural blossom pattern. Alright, now we move on to the last phase of the rose. You are going to take your green cutter and you are going to cut out 5 petals. I would suggest you spend a little bit more time stretching, pleating, and ruffling the edge of these last petals. I feel that the more you do that, the more realistic your rose will look. You are going to repeat the same process as you did before, lightly wetting the bottom of the rosebud as I'm doing here. As I stated before, you are going to take your petal and you're going to place the center of the petal where the 2 previously placed petals meet, as I'm doing here. Once you're done, continue wetting and take your second petal and place it on the inside of the previously placed petal, as I'm doing here. Continue moving your rosebud, and once again the same thing, a little bit of water, take your petal, place it on the inside and keep moving it around lightly as I'm doing here. And once again you're going to do the same thing, placing all of your petals on the inside. Alright, here's the last petal. You're going to place it on the inside and you're going to take the first petal that you put down and you're going to place the last petal on the outside. With a wire stand like this one, make a ring out of aluminum and gently place your rose in the middle of the aluminum. You can also use a cup to do this if you don't have a wire stand like this one. Going to take cotton or tissue paper and you're going to lightly place it under the petal like I'm doing here. It'll give the rose a look as if the rose is in full bloom. If you feel that the petals are falling on each other and they're sticking together, then put a little bit of cotton between the petals to separate them so the rose looks as if it bloomed in different stages, and it really does give it a more realistic look. If you feel that one of the petals sticks out more than the other ones, just take a small scissor and trim out some of the edges of the petal just to make sure everything is uniform. And that is it. You have completed your first fondant sugar rose. Now we're moving on to the other colors. Once you are done creating all of your roses, then we start working on the leaves. I decided to go with two different sizes of leaves, so I chose the pink and the green cutter. I went ahead and reshaped them back into the original form that they came in. Take the ruffle part of the cutter and cut out your leaves. Take the blade section of the tool and put a line straight down the middle of the leaf and across, creating veins that are always found on leaves. Crumble a piece of aluminum as I'm doing here. Take the piece of aluminum and lightly press down on the fondant. This helps create ridges and veins that you see on leaves. Take your leaf and fold it and shape it and arrange it to whichever way you want, and place it on the aluminum to dry, and proceed to do the same thing with your other leaves. And once again, you're going to create all the ridges, and you're going to fold it, and you're going to put it on the aluminum and allow it to dry. Now that we are satisfied with all of the roses, we are moving on to the cake. Please only use buttercream and not whipped cream, because buttercream is less likely to wilt and to seep through and melt your fondant. Once you stack all of your cakes to your desired height, then we are going to secure the cake. You can do this by using cake dowels. You can also use thick bubble tea straws, but I use bamboo skewers that I had sitting around my kitchen. Once you do that, then it's time to cover the cake with the buttercream that you set aside. Cover the cake with about 1/4 inch thick of buttercream. This will help the fondant stick to the cake, and it will also smooth out any imperfections. Once you are done with that, then you are going to place the cake in the refrigerator for about 3 to 4 hours and allow the buttercream to set. Alright, so now we are going to work on covering the cake with the fondant. Take a string and measure the top and the size of your cake. You will be using the string to measure the size of your fondant. Knead your fondant to soften it and bring it to room temperature. Dust your surface with plenty of cornstarch to avoid the fondant from sticking. Roll out the fondant to 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick. Measure the fondant with your piece of string to make sure that you have the correct size to cover the entire cake. Gently place the fondant over the cake. Smooth the fondant over the cake. Start at the top first, then move down the sides and smooth the fondant. Make sure that there is no rolls or wrinkles. Trim off any excess fondant using a pizza cutter. Cut as close to the bottom of the cake as possible. Using your fondant smoothing tool, smooth out your fondant completely. As you see here, I got a little bit of the buttercream on the outside of the fondant, but with a paper towel, I was able to wipe it off very easily. Now we are going to work on the gold ribbon. Take a string and measure the width of the cake. The fondant that I'm using here, I purchased a small amount of gold fondant at Hobby Lobby. You are going to roll out the fondant and take anything that can be used as a ruler, like I did here, and with a pizza cutter, you are going to cut out the ribbon. You're going to lightly wet the bottom of the cake and place your fondant. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finished completely covering our cake, and it is 100% ready for the decorations. Yes, exciting. This is the best part. I took a makeup brush that I purchased at the dollar store, and I lightly dusted Midnight Blue Luster Dust from Hobby Lobby. Now it's time to make your roses shine. You are going to boil water. You're going to place the water in a bowl, and you're going to lightly run the roses over the steam. This will bring a beautiful natural shine to the roses. Now we arrange the beautiful roses. Go ahead and arrange your roses any way you prefer. I went with a cascade look. You are going to take some of the leftover buttercream and add blue coloring. This will be used to make the glue to help your leaves stick to the fondant. Continue arranging your roses any way you'd like.